I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. We're co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces Freethought Matters. Today, we'll be speaking with a political coordinator who helps find and elect non-religious public officials.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces Freethought Matters, is the nation's largest association of free thinkers. That's atheists, agnostics, and other non-believers. We invite you to join us in our vital work to keep our secular government free from religious influence. Become a member at ffrf.org or ask for a complimentary copy of our newspaper, Freethought Today. Freedom depends on freethinkers. Watch prior episodes of Freethought Matters on FFRF's YouTube channel.
Welcome to Freethought Matters. Our guest today is Ron Millar, who is political coordinator for the Center for Freethought Equality, a nonprofit that advocates for atheists and the non-religious community. Ron Millar has a Ph.D. from Virginia Tech. He's worked for more than 40 years for nonprofit education and advocacy groups in the nation's capital. He formerly served as deputy director of the newly created Secular Coalition for America. He endeavors to increase the representation of humanists, atheists, agnostics, and freethinkers in political campaigns and among elected officials.
Ron Millar is also a lifetime member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And thanks for that, and thanks for joining us today, Ron, and for all your good work.
Thank you very much for having me.
First, Ron, what do you call yourself? Atheist, humanist, skeptic?
I'll take many IDs. Generally, I like to use atheist because that's the one that has the most bias against it. So, I try to use that to, show people that, it doesn't have the negative power that it has and to help remove the bias. But I'm also a humanist, I'm skeptic,
Like us,
non-theist.
Were you born that way and stayed that way, or did you, like Dan, have to think your way out of religion?
My family was in a very fundamentalist Christian church, and I did have the conversion experience around 10 or 11, but that quickly wore off, especially when they told us that we couldn't watch Monty Python's Life of Brian. I just, okay, that's a deal breaker for me. But also just the hatred of, the other within the community just drove me away from the church. And, by the time I was in college, I was an atheist.
Good for you. So to talk about the issue we invited you on, religion is way overrepresented in Congress, isn't it? Pew Research announced earlier this year that 88% of Congress is Christian, compared to only 63% of U.S. citizens. So, Ron, why is this, and what can we do about it?
For years, there was the taboo about atheists running and holding public office. Fortunately, that has disappeared. There's still a bias against our community. But the Gallup poll back in 1958 said, would you vote for a well-qualified blank presidential candidate? And one of the blanks they inserted atheist. And in 1958, only 18% of people would vote for an atheist presidential candidate. In 2019, that jumped up to 60%. They'll be doing that poll again probably this year or next, so we'll see if there's any progress there. But that's still the conception, though, around a lot of people is that you can't be an atheist or a humanist or an agnostic and run for and hold public office. You'll think there'll be a backlash. But what we found that there really isn't. What I do is I reach out to candidates, especially at the state legislature and in Congress, tell them that our political action committee exists, and invite them to apply for an endorsement.
Ron, there's another issue, though. It's not just that that non-believers and the non-religious, at about 30%, are underrepresented in Congress and in state houses, but that Christians are overrepresented. And is that because of the organizing of conservative Christian groups?
In part. I mean, it's also just the tradition of the country. I mean, we see white Christian nationalism getting very angry today and fearful because they're realizing that they're not going to be the dominant majority in America in just a few years. And so that's why we're seeing this fearful, hateful backlash. And they are doing everything they can to hold on to power, whether it's all the money they invest in campaigns, voter restrictions, gerrymandering. I mean, they want to hold on to power, and they are actively engaged in holding on to power. But the demographics are against them. Will eventually be successful, but we really have to work hard. We have to organize our community and get to work. When I first took on this job at the Center for Freethought Equality, we knew of 5 state legislators who identified with our community. Now we're up to 75. And that's a nice increase, but we need another 1,500 to reach parity with our population. So we've got a whole lot of work to do. And we do have one member of Congress, Jared Huffman, who identifies with our community, and we need to get more there too. And that doesn't even mention the 500,000 local elected positions that exist across the country, and we need to have our people running for elections and filling those positions too.
And there are members of Congress who are very comfortable hanging out with non-believers. Well, our representative, Mark Pocan, is very comfortable with the Freethought Caucus. So maybe since these demographics are changing, maybe it just takes a while for the corner to turn, for the inertia of the electoral process to get more representation. Don't you think in maybe 10 years we'll see more non-believers?
Oh, definitely. Part of it is stemmed from, I had a candidate in West Texas who said, I'm an atheist, but I don't dare come out and say that I'm an atheist because I'll already lose 2/3 of my constituency just by being a Democrat, more because I'm pro-choice, more because I'm LGBTQ friendly. And I was thinking, well, who's left to lose at that point? What is the fear? So
Exactly.
we commissioned a poll. And we found out that voters are much more interested in policy positions. And once you've put those positions together, you have your base of support. And so religion or the lack of religion doesn't come into play at that point, or it's very marginal at that point. So I think it's convincing people. People are still holding on to the taboo, so it's getting past that taboo and just educating folks.
Summer, Colorado Politics had a fascinating piece reporting that nearly 1 in 4 Colorado legislators identifies as non-religious, which seems pretty phenomenal. But even then, religion is still overrepresented in Colorado's legislature because actually 34% of the state has no religious affiliation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I talked to that reporter, and she did excellent work. She must have a great deal of trust within the legislature because people were responding to her to requests about, what is their authentic religious views. And so, she knew about the people that we'd identified, talked to them. She interviewed me for the piece too. But getting back that there was another 20 plus people who were not religious, but weren't quite ready to announce that, shows that there's still that fear of announcing and fear what the voters will do. And also, we're working to build caucuses in the various states where we have elected officials so that, like with the Congressional Freethought Caucus, which we helped form in 2018, it's a place where elected officials from the state can get together, talk, and feel more comfortable about identifying themselves, being their authentic selves with regard to religion. So there's one in Minnesota, one in New Hampshire. We hope to have more soon, but I think that will help dispel the feeling that they can't be authentic.
We want to get back to that Congressional Freethought Caucus, but I wanted to ask, Ron, were you involved in persuading former Representative Pete Stark way back when to come out as the first member of Congress as an open non-believer. And that was a big moment. And if you were involved, how did you manage that?
Well, at the time I was working with the Secular Coalition for America, and David Niosi, who was president of the Secular Coalition, said, why don't we do a contest to find out who's the highest elected official who identifies with our community. So Lori Lippman Brown, who was the director at the time, we did some publicity on it. We sent out some feelers, and people would recommend elected officials for us to talk to. And one of the recommendations was reaching out to Pete Stark. And he sent back information saying that he was a Unitarian who did not hold a belief in a higher power or a supreme being, something of that language. We met with him and his staff, and he agreed to be public. And so he was the very first ever member of Congress to identify with our community.
Yeah, and he accepted our Emperor Has No Clothes Award one year and did a video for our conference.
That was very important because, again, to know that there's a community out there that will support you because of you and awards he got from American Humanist Association, he quickly adopted identifiers that we're much more used to as humanist and atheist. And so it really is knowing that there's a community, knowing that there's people that will support them when they make these announcements.
And also from California is Jared Huffman, which today is the only really, I guess, openly out member of Congress. He identifies as a humanist and an agnostic. Were you involved with Huffman as well?
Again, I send out candidate questionnaires to people running for Congress, running for re-election to Congress. And he returned a candidate questionnaire to us. It had a little nebulous thing about religion, so that prompted an email discussion between us for a little while, and then we met for dinner. And he talked about how he wanted to be public about being an agnostic and a humanist. And he did it the right way, too. He talked to his family first, talked to colleagues, talked to some of his constituents, so that there wouldn't be any surprises. And that's one thing I always tell the candidates that we endorse. Make sure that this isn't going to be a surprise in your business life, your work life, your family life. I had one guy said, "Oh, don't endorse me right away. I've never told my great aunt so-and-so that I'm an atheist," and then we could endorse. But Huffman did all that. He got positive feedback from everybody. And so we endorsed him for the 2018 election, his re-election there. And during the dinner, we were like, here's several things that we would love to see happen within Congress. And one of them was creating a caucus. And I said, but you can't be a caucus of one. But he proved me wrong because his colleagues reacted so favorably and thought he was so brave to come out that they wanted to be supportive. So in 2018, or early 2018, we helped them form the Congressional Freethought Caucus, and I think we're up to 16 members now, maybe 8. Yep. So it's growing. It's not growing as fast as I would like, but hey, we're starting out.
And we keep trying to get some senators in there too. And of course, Representative Huffman has been such a wonderful representative for the Freethought community. He's another Emperor Has No Clothes honoree. So
I think what's more amazing, though, is that it didn't hurt his next election. He got reelected even more strongly after that.
Right. It didn't change his numbers at all. And in fact, he told me that he really enjoyed going to your conference because he met ex-Mormons like himself who are now atheists. And, again, it's a sub-community within our community, but he felt, very much engaged by being able to talk with them.
Before we go out for the break, just briefly, what is the Center for Freethought Equality?
The Center for Freethought Equality is the advocacy and political arm of the American Humanist Association. For IRS purposes, AHA is a 501c3. The Center for Freethought Equality is a C4, so that means it can do things AHA can't do, like it could lobby all day long, and it can also have an affiliated political action committee, which is where I focus my time on. So we're a traditional PAC. We file with the Federal Elections Commission, and you can see where we spend our money and who gives us money, and it's all about helping elect more atheists and humanists to Congress and at the state and local level.
Talking with Ron Millar with the Center for Freethought Equality, and when we come back, Ron, we want to talk more about what we can do, what any of us can do to help elect more free-thinking candidates who support a truly secular government. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist.
When I first recorded that commercial back in 2014, being openly atheist in America was still fairly uncommon. Today, the fastest growing religious group in the country is the non-religious, especially among the young. That progress is heartening, but the religious pushback is fierce and the forces of Christian nationalism are well organized. Our progress won't continue unless we work together so that reason and our secular constitution will prevail. That's why I'm asking you to join the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics working to keep state and church separate, just like our founders intended. Please join the Freedom from Religion Foundation today. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
My name's Jarvis, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist. There are many reasons why I'm an atheist, but I'll start with the crudest explanation. I'm sure many of you have seen Clash of the Titans or The Immortals or 300, these blockbuster films about ancient Greek or Roman religion, which we now call mythology. But back then it wasn't mythology. It was very real for them. They genuinely believed that you had to put a coin in a person's mouth before they were buried so that they could pay for the literal ferry to the afterlife. Just as many people today believe that they should eat crackers and wine on a Sunday, or that God wants women to hide their bodies under black burqas. Every religion that has ever existed, and there are many, have all believed that they were right, that their rituals and rules and beliefs were 100% correct, and they all thought they nailed it. But where are they today? If they're not completely forgotten, they're on the silver screen, amusing us with their sword fights, animal sacrifices, and oracles. The religions of today are the entertainment of tomorrow. Everyone, I hope, is an atheist about Zeus and Apollo, Juno and Poseidon. I just added Jesus and Muhammad to that list.
Welcome back to Freethought Matters.
We're talking with Ron Millar, who is the political and PAC coordinator at Center for Freethought Equality, and we're talking about getting more atheists and freethinkers running for office.
So Ron, in a recent podcast interview, you made quite a statement. You said that the taboo against atheist candidates is now dead. And that's a pretty confident statement because, you know, in the past, atheism was like the kiss of death. That even happened when we were involved with some political candidates. They lost and they even said, why? Why do you say it's no longer a taboo? And this is backed up by statistics?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, we did a poll, commissioned a poll, that examined it, and voters are much more interested in the policy stances of candidates than they are about their religion. There is still a bias, though. I won't say that the bias isn't there, but it's much more diminished. The taboo is gone, and also it's proven out from some elections we've been involved with. In 2016, Gail Jordan ran for the state senate in Tennessee, and religion never came up in her campaign. It was a very red district. She lost, but then the incumbent took a job with the Trump administration, and so she ran again in the special election. That year, the lieutenant governor, the head of the GOP, and her opponent just railed against her as an atheist, saying that she didn't hold the values of Tennesseans. And so she handled it really well, talked about her values, and it turned out she got a higher percentage of vote when she was being lambasted for being an atheist than she did in the prior election. So our demographics have grown so much, and there is that huge pool of nuns.
Excuse me, we need to say N-O-N-E-S, not N-U-N-S.
Yes. No, that's from the Pew Research Center. It's people who aren't affiliated with any religion. And so our demographics, I think, are just changing the political landscape, too. The key problem is, though, that people still have that taboo in their minds, and that's why we have to tell them that it's not there and to get people out public, being their authentic selves, running for office.
Ron, as you know, FFRF has just started our own lobbying and advocacy arm, the FFRF Action Fund, and we're finding that even among state legislators who are very out as being non-religious, there is a lot of trepidation about creating state Freethought or secular caucuses, which you mentioned earlier. And there's only those two right now. And so there still must be a lot of concern. And how can we help allay that?
Just showing that there is a community to be supportive, I think, is the key item. Because once they see that they have folks who will be supportive, that'll help on their campaigns, that there is this large pool of people who are voters in a constituency, it'll get rid of that fear. And for our community, I mean, when we were a very small community, we relied on the Supreme Court to defend our rights. But now we realize the Supreme Court is no longer going to be protecting our rights, that they're going in the exact opposite direction with white Christian nationalism. So since we are a larger pool of constituents than we've ever have been, we have to be engaged in electoral politics. And, if you're a C3, C4, as an individual level, everybody can do their part. Just because you're a C4 organization doesn't mean you can't get involved in electoral politics. You just have to follow the rules and make sure you're nonpartisan. So I encourage all our member groups, all the folks out there, to please just get more engaged in the electoral arena, because that's the only way we can defeat white Christian nationalism in this country.
For our viewers, a C3 and a C4 are different types of non-profit organizations. So, Ron, you said that we still have to deal with identity politics. What do you mean by that?
Identity politics is saying, I'm an atheist. I'm with the LGBTQ community. I'm African American. Those are the identity politics that drive a lot of our society right now. And because we do have that lingering bias, it's very important for the atheist and humanist community to publicly identify, with your family, with your colleagues, with your community, and that will diminish the bias. And one of the great ways to do that is have respected leaders within the electoral arena also identify with us. And so that's what we're focused on is, when people meet Jared Huffman, they realize that he shares their values, that he's a humanist and an agnostic, and it doesn't matter. It just isn't an issue. So at some point, we'd love to be to the place where, we don't have to be in the identity politics business, but we're not there yet, and we've got a lot of work to do.
But I know we want to convey to the public that, someone isn't going to be an atheist public official only espousing atheism. But on the other hand, one of the reasons we don't want to just get represented for the sake of representation, right? We want our secular values to prevail, as you've been pointing out with white Christian nationalism. So don't you think that the non-religious people have a lot to offer our democracy and our public legislatures?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when you look at, we are the polar opposite of white Christian nationalists. I mean, they are on an anti-democratic, bigoted, anti-science, racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, and homophobic crusade. And we believe in social justice, civil rights. And so we can counter that because of our growing demographics. But we're in a very dangerous time frame, and we've got to get active to take on these folks.
But we can also partner with a lot of liberal religious people who share those same secular values. And I think that's one of the beauties of a caucus that can work with other groups, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And, with the lobbying that you guys do and the American Humanist Association does and the Center for Freethought Equality, we work with lots of religious groups. In fact, Baptist Joint Committee has this great project. It's Christians Against Christian Nationalism, and they're doing great work. So yeah, we can't get rid of the bias against us without having allies who are going to support us. So
it's very good to see so many more religious people now speaking up, writing books against white Christian nationalism. That's new.
And we had Amanda Tyler on this show in the past, so she was wonderful. Well, how do you find and help non-believers who are wanting to run for public office?
I have these packets that I send out with a candidate questionnaire, a guide for running for office. I have our poll results about the taboo being gone, and I send that out either through email or to the mail to all the candidates running for the state legislators were allowed to be involved with, and for the federal candidates. And then they respond to me by returning the candidate questionnaire. But I remember early on, I'd get this whispered voice through the phone saying, "How did you know that I was an atheist?" And I had to quickly reassure them that, no, I'm sending out to everybody. So it's not like I targeted you. And, people are cautious. But it's marvelous to see people who, and especially the younger the candidate, it really isn't an issue to them anymore. I mean, they're public and proud of their identity. And, like I say, the demographics are with us, and it's going to change. But we really don't have the time. I mean, climate change is on us. We've got to work, and we've got to preserve our democracy, which is also a threat. So we don't have the 30 years for the demographics to catch up with us. We got to get working now.
So what can individuals do to help increase the number of non-religious candidates for public office, very briefly in our last minute here?
All right. Well, on my website, cfequality.org, and you should become a member, because it's absolutely free to become a member of the Center for Freethought Equality. We want you on our mailing list, and that's the only way you can know about the candidates that we endorse, because we are a membership PAC. But on our website, we have tabs about what you can do as an individual, what you can do as a group, even if you're a C3 nonprofit, and also about how to run for office. So use those resources. There is so much you can do, both as individuals and as organizations. And, please be engaged. That's my plea. We have to be more engaged in the electoral arena.
Those are excellent words of advice and wisdom, Ron Millar, and we are so grateful for everything you've done to help seed free thought in Congress and encourage those of you who are non-religious to run for public office. If you're listening, there are many resources for you. So thank you so much for joining us, Ron.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Ron Millar is with the Center for Freethought Equality. And we want to thank you for watching Freethought Matters.
Because free thought matters.
My name is Bill, and I'm an out-of-the-closet atheist, meaning I don't really care what you believe, and I don't really think that you should care what I believe. I was raised in South Dakota in a strict Catholic family. I was an altar boy. I served Mass a lot of Sundays twice. The priest gave us this little card that said, "In case of accident, please call a priest." I don't really like that idea anymore, since I left the church about 40 years ago. Now, if you find me alongside the road after an accident, please call an ambulance and an EMT.